I was going to chime in. Never mind.
Oh,
You should record when the presentation starts. So then, anyway, never mind. Go on. Continue.
Okay, go ahead, David. Sorry to
you,
interrupt.
yeah, that's okay. Did you want me to repeat that or just go on
Go
for?
on.
Okay. Um, so let's see. How do I get to screen share here? Let's see. There we go. Is everybody able to see the website?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this is through CalAg permits. It's the Beware website, CalAg permits or beware.calagpermits.org. Um, so this is where you would go. You can see information. So beekeepers can use the registration here, bee sellers, and pest control advisors and grower and applicators. So one of the other things, in addition to monitoring for pest and disease, um, in areas, if there's going to be any type of commercial pesticide application, they need to check with the website first to make sure that there are no sensitive bees in the immediate area. It does not tell them who you are. It'll just basically notify them that there are hives within the area, and then they basically anonymously contact you. It sends you information on what's being used and when, and allows you to communicate with them again anonymously. So let's kind of go through just pretending to create an account here. So if you are a beekeeper, have never used this tool before, you need to register as a new Beware user. Completely free. That's So you would just put in your email, standard email password, and a security question and answer. Register for the Beware account, and then you will see it'll bring up once you put in your home address and address for hives, it'll actually bring up a map, and you can plot the hive locations directly on the map, either by clicking on the map or by entering the exact location. And you can also move the tags around. If it's on a larger property, you can put exactly where the hives are on the map. Um, and that's a tool that we can then use if we have a pest or disease issue somewhere, we can look and see what other hives are in that area. Um, payments are now going through uh, on the state site. You can no longer pay in office. The internet connection is unstable. So let's see, this hopefully will bring up. Yeah, here we go. So 1 to 9 colonies, we are waiving the fees. So for 1 to 9 colonies, there is no registration fee. And then 10 to 50 is $100, 51 and above, $250. Back out of that. Okay. How do I stop sharing here? It's not bringing me up. Ah, there it is. So,
David, Janine mentioned that at the next meeting, there might be a computer set up where people can actually register right then and there. Is that correct?
yeah, we'll set up our laptop there and have it connected. So if there are people that are just not confident with computer usage and all, we'll be able to help you on site at the in-person meeting in February.
Okay. Go ahead, Janine.
One important thing that I did notice when registering is that, well, two, is that the fees for 2026 are based on the number of colonies that you have registered in 2025. And there is a deadline of January 31st to register colonies if you have more than 10 or more. Or is it, actually you said 11 or more. So, and if you don't pay by January 31st, they're going to add a late payment fee that, would be unpleasant. So I suggest that anybody that has more than, the 10 hives or the 9 hives, 10 or more hives, please, if you're uncomfortable doing it by yourself on the website, seek out help. I think that, folks at the Ag Center would even be willing to help you register.
Yeah, we can always, there is on our website, there's a link that'll open a fillable PDF, and you can fill that out and email it to our office, and we can input that information if you're not able to do it yourself.
And what does this money go for? How is it used?
The money is used at the state level to fund various apiary programs. So some of it does come back to the counties for reimbursement if we do have any kind of actions like we had with small hive beetle, or if we have an AFB breakout, anything like that, we would be able to get some reimbursement from the state. A lot of it is more in the larger agricultural counties where there is a lot of inspection for migratory beehives and such.
Is there such a thing as hive inspections by the ag department, or no?
We do kind of as needed. If somebody is suspecting they have an issue with their hive, they can either bring a frame in to our office, or we can go out on site to ascertain what's going on.
Okay. I was just wondering if they were like just show up out of the clear blue and just say, "Hey, we're going."
No.
Okay.
I might add to this, if I'm as the president. David has been an excellent, what you call, partner with us, the association. He's willing to help us out. We have helped me out and Cheryl with American Foulbrood, and he's willing to he is our friend. So David has been enthusiastic with our bee association, and so I don't think he's going to come inspect. But if we do have, for example, American Foulbrood, it is an advantage to have him help us to get this, for example, dispose of the hive and etc. So, and like I said, David has been a good partner to the association, and I look upon him as a source to help the association when we have some major issues with our bees.
Okay, so, I was just wondering. I heard that there are states in the United States that the ag department just shows up and just starts inspecting your hives, but I didn't know if that was true with here or not.
Not here, but in
so.
in some of the large agricultural counties where they're getting in hundreds of hives on a flatbed to almond orchards or so, they definitely will go and inspect those as they're coming in. But we just don't have anything of that scale.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
So anybody else want to have a question for David? Oh, I do have a question. Has the treatment for AFB, what is it? The testing, those kits are not available, correct?
Still not available. Yeah.
So unfortunately, because they came in handy.
Yes, very. It was the quick and easy. Yeah. Not 100% accuracy, but very high, and a few minutes turnaround compared to several weeks sending it into the lab in Beltsville. So,
well, thank you, David, for coming in tonight and speaking to us. And like I tell the membership, you're a valuable source. You also sponsor our meetings at the Ag Center, so we appreciate that. So, thank you, David. Thank you.
Yeah. I would add one thing. As far as the AFB goes, maybe Dr. Wilson can address that during her talk. There is a bacterial test that can be done by a veterinarian that will detect, and she can better fill you in on that.
Okay, good. Thank you, David. Okay.
Yeah, and thank you for helping us to eliminate a potential outbreak of small hive beetle a couple of years ago. That was very much
went well. We got lucky. So you're welcome.
Okay. Having said that, are we ready for our presentation this evening? Hi, Lindsay.
Hi there. Thank you. Can everybody, before we get started, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I want to introduce you first, if I may.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. By the way, were you at the honey tasting festival?
I unfortunately couldn't make that, although I heard Mark Carlson attended and it was a wonderful time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Our guest speaker tonight is Dr. Lindsay Wilson, who is also a veterinarian, and I believe you're one of the few in the state that a veterinarian with bees. Is that correct?
Yep, there's a group of us, and we want to get more veterinarians involved. So we're small now, but we're hoping to grow that hive. Yes.
Okay. And having said that, are you working on your master beekeeper program?
Yep, I am a member of the California Master Beekeeper Program. I did my master capstone last year in 2025. I was actually on American Foulbrood. So you all got to see that presentation last year, I think it was. I was so thankful to come to see the club, and that's what I did my Master Beekeeper Program on. So thank you guys for having me back.
Okay, and you also are a friend with Mark Carlson, correct?
Yeah, we're in the same club down here in San Francisco, so it's I'm really thankful he could attend tonight remotely.
Okay. Be free to add more to your biography. Tell us more about you.
Okay. So I work with bees here. I've got some backyard colonies. Mark and I co-manage a apiary at a community farm, and I also work at our San Francisco SPCA. So one of our animal shelters here on dogs and cats. That's what I do most of my time. But I do spend quite a bit of time in the bee yard as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you ready to give your presentation?
Yeah, give me a brief moment to get the tech up and then we'll get going.
Okay. And, oh, I want to ask you, Lindsay, is it okay to record your presentation?
Absolutely. Yeah, please feel free to record. And I'll also send a copy of the slide deck to you and Janine after. There's some useful links you may want to send out by email to the club afterward.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And play. There we go. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to spend your evening with me here. We're going to be talking about new strategies and emerging concerns for honeybee health. I heard in some of the meeting already folks asking about some of the new Varroa treatments that have come out within the last calendar year. I'm really thankful to Janine for inviting me to come talk to you all tonight. And she inspired some of what we're going to talk about. She let me know what beekeepers are wanting to hear about. So hopefully we can address some of your questions and get you some new information as well. So some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, new things that have come out. It says for 2026, but some of these things were brand new on the market last year, but towards the end of the year. We're going to talk about new strategies for American Foulbrood. Unfortunately, the ELISA lateral flow tests, those nice little apiary tests where you put some drops and it shows you very clearly like a COVID test with fairly good accuracy for European Foulbrood and American Foulbrood, are no longer available on the market. They are trying to get them back. It's a problem with importing things and also with some of the technology with the membrane of the test inside of it. But we are not anticipating to have them available again in 2026. Hopefully, maybe towards the end of the year or 2027, they might become available again. But there's other ways that we can be confident whether or not our hive needs to be addressed. We're going to touch on those and some new strategies to consider if you've had to deal with American Foulbrood in your apiary or around the area. We're going to talk about some invasive species. I'm so glad that your ag inspector can be on the call. I'm sure these are part of what's on his mind at times when he talks about keeping our hives healthy, especially with bees coming into an area, into a state, into a country. Bees can bring diseases with them. We want to keep those out of here. So talking about the invasive hornet species, also talking about Tropilaelaps mite. And then we're going to talk about some new Varroa strategies and products. VarroxSan is a oxalic acid treatment, and Varroa is something you feed to your bees that prevents the foundress mites from making more Varroa mite. These each have their place in an IPM strategy. Some are going to be better for some beekeepers than others, and some of you may decide not to use certain products at all based on your experience or your goals. So we'll give you a highlight and give you lots of follow-up information on that. I got very, very blessed to be able to travel to Apamondia. That's where some of this information comes back to you from. So my partner and I were able to travel there. It was held in Denmark last fall. We got to do quite a bit of honey tasting. They had honeys from all over the world. Some of my favorite were from Japan. They had some interesting plants I had never tried before. Visit a queen rearing operation and a beekeeper that provided pollination services. We got to visit their apiary school there, where they are running a program to reduce American Foulbrood in the region. And of course, we spent some wonderful time tasting mead. It's one of my favorite things to help with is to brew mead. My partner is a mead maker. And of course, I like to drink it too. So I want to talk about American Foulbrood. This photo, we can see how the shotgun brood pattern, this is pretty classic, and it was a pretty unfortunate case of American Foulbrood we had here in San Francisco in 2025. This hive was discovered by one of our very experienced beekeepers in the club. This fellow knows his stuff. He called me and said, I think I have a problem. I think it's American Foulbrood. Can you come out and help me check? So on inspecting the hive, this is what we found. He had one queen right colony. We unfortunately decided, and unfortunately for the bees, we had to euthanize this hive. It was clinically sick with AFB, American Foulbrood. But I want to give a huge thank you to my fellow beekeepers in the biosecurity team. So we actually have a group of folks here with our San Francisco Beekeeper Club that have taken a little bit more training and done their own education on what to do when we have a case, who to connect with, how to get that beekeeper support. This is a tough thing to have happen to your bees because it means we have to euthanize the hive. No one ever wants to do that, but when you have an animal sick with this illness, we know that they're not going to recover. We need to euthanize, and we need to take proactive steps for the other hives in that apiary which may be treatment with antibiotics. We want to, of course, get rid of all of the gear that could be containing any spores, isolating our gear, cleaning our gear really, really well. If we're going to reuse anything like hive tools or a suit, to make sure we know how to wash it, how to clean it and sterilize it. There's no way to sterilize brood frames. Those all need to be thrown out. But then also to protect the other bees, again, in that apiary, but your neighbors. This is something that can very easily spread from one apiary to another. If we have a hive that became sick and we didn't realize it for a while, or we didn't know that that's what they were sick from, and maybe we left the gear stored somewhere, other bees can come in looking for those resources, take the spores home to them, and then we have illness in the community. So there's a talk I did with y'all. I think you still have the recording, and if you don't, it's on the California Master Beekeeper website. It really goes in depth onto how we do the testing for American Foulbrood. We won't have time to dive deep on that tonight, but your clinical signs, knowing what a sick hive looks like, being able to do the Holt's milk test, because we don't have those lateral flow tests. The Holt's milk test is one where if it's done properly, 91% confident in our results on that if we have a positive. Knowing how to collect samples to send to the USDA, knowing to reach out to your local club, to your ag inspector. And then if you have other hives there, knowing when to reach out to a veterinarian, because in the United States, we can treat these hives with antibiotics. A hive that's not clinically ill, not sick, in the same apiary, and hopes for them to best recover and to not have this happen. So those are the takeaways I'd like you to think about. But this is, when this happens, some folks think, oh, I was a bad beekeeper, or so-and-so got it. They must not know what they're doing. This can happen to anybody. And in my experience, the folks that are catching it are because they are good beekeepers. And there may be folks out there who don't know that this is part of what their problem was. So the more you can come together in community and help each other out with learning how to protect your hives, the better. When we were at Appomondia, we got to go to the school for beekeeping there. So it's kind of like their big ag school. It's a great learning experience for me. In the EU, they are not legally allowed to use antibiotics to treat American Foulbrood. Denmark explicitly no antibiotics for use in honeybees at all. I have an asterisk in front of legally because we know from the broader EU, I'm sure Denmark is following their own rules strictly, but in the broader EU, when they've done honey sampling for antibiotics, they found traces of multiple antibiotics in those honey samples. So not everybody is following the rules the way they should. But at least in Denmark, they had a really good strategy to reduce the rates of American Foulbrood. They're having a really bad problem with it over about 6 to 7 years. So they were able to take their rates of Foulbrood problems from 30%, which was a huge problem. Imagine losing 30% of your colonies every year to Foulbrood. I'd get very frustrated. They were able to take it down to less than 7. They don't have their data from the last 2 years published yet, but it looks like it's even better than that, closer to 3%. So that's a tenfold improvement over a handful of years. Really significant when you think of a whole country, over 3 to 5 islands being able to do this together. So their strategy was, of course, again, if we've got a clinically ill hive, we do need to euthanize it. Those girls aren't going to be able to bounce back in a healthy way. They rechecked all the hives in that apiary in 2 to 4 weeks. This is a collaborative effort with the beekeeper and their local agricultural representative. They had somebody from the technical school go out and help them, and then also help them inspect to make sure they know the hives are still healthy that are nearby. They also inspected the hives that were registered within 2 kilometers of the sick hive, and that's because that's our highest risk area, is within 1 mile or 2 kilometers. Not everybody's going to register their hives, but I think reflecting on registration this year, I've got 1 hive right now. I'm going to register it because I want to know if anybody in my neighborhood has had a problem so that I can take proactive steps for my own bees. So I guess I would encourage people that have less than 10 hives to think about how useful this could be to get notification of what's going on in your area. This is part of the strategy they used in Denmark to really improve everybody's bees' health and reduce the rates of these illnesses. Another wonderful thing they did, which goes against my intuition a bit, is they removed over 30% of their brood comb every year. All of the beekeepers, all their old brood comb, I was taught that drawn comb is gold. Hang on to that stuff as long as you can. You can put it back in, you can build your hives, do your splits with it, keep that drawn comb. Well, it turns out the longer we keep the drawn comb and the more generations of bees that grow up in it and develop in it, they're leaving their cocoons in there, but also maybe the Varroa mites have left some of their viruses in there as they were making the bees ill. Sometimes they do that. And then any pesticides the bees brought in can get in that comb too. Varroa treatments we've used, especially the amitraz-based ones, get stored in the lipids, the wax of the comb. So when we keep it, we're keeping all of these old things in there too. So rendering your comb, making candles, making salves, doing whatever you like with it, or rendering it and repressing it back into new foundation. When you take all of the cocoons and the things in the bottom, the brown yucky stuff out of it, when you render it, you take out the problems. You can reuse that comb for new foundation. What they didn't do in Denmark, they didn't use antibiotics on the other hives, and they also didn't restrict the movement of the beekeepers. And I asked the guy, I said, in the United States, we say, quarantine these bees, don't move them for a year. And he said, nobody would comply. I still think it's a good idea to not move them. I wouldn't want somebody moving sick hives near my hives. But in their strategy, they knew that the beekeepers that are making money and sustaining their operation with doing some pollination contracts weren't going to listen and couldn't continue their business if they weren't allowed to move. So they let them move wherever, but they kept track of them and they had a good relationship. So I think having a really good club, really supportive club, and a good relationship with your county agriculture can help keep everybody's bees healthy with this. So to kind of go back through the strategies to think about if you've had issues with American Foulbrood in your area, or if you want to get proactive about it, you should consider removing 30% of your brood comb every year. There's some new things called Better Comb. We've tried them in the yard where it's pre-printed comb, so the bees can start laying in it right away, or getting new foundation, taking your rendered wax and repressing it. Removing the old combs reduces both pesticide residue, viruses, and other pathogens, including if any old AFB spores that could be in there. You can always use the wax for products of the hive. I make candles and then everybody gets them at the holidays, probably 2 or 3 years in a row at this point. And something I'm thinking about next year for the hives that I help manage is the American Foulbrood vaccine. So we can't always control what the beekeepers around us are doing or not doing. And I think most beekeepers are well-intentioned to want to have healthy bees, but things can happen. And so in such a close-knit area that we have here in San Francisco, a vaccinated queen would be my kind of insurance policy that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that my hives are healthy and that I get a good honey crop and that I'm not keeping any illness around. So I'm going to see what the prices are in the spring. It's usually, I think, $20 to $40 more for a vaccinated queen, but the peace of mind, to me at least, is well worth it. We're going to have lots of time at the end of the presentation for questions about American Foulbrood. I know folks asked about the veterinary test. It's called the hanging drop method. It's done under a microscope, and we're actually going to host a lab this year in LA, the group of bee vets, to get more bee vets to know this test. But it's in the biosecurity presentation that I've got with the Master Beekeeper program. So there's actually how to do it and links. And so anybody with a good compound microscope that likes to do that kind of thing could potentially learn to do this test. The tutorial of how to do it is complimentary online from one of the vets at Michigan State. So I want to make sure that we leave you all tonight with those resources. And know that veterinarians in your area can always reach out to folks from the Honeybee Veterinary Consortium to learn how to be able to do these tests and help you out with your hives. I'm going to take a little break from American Foulbrood. I'm going to drink a little bit of water. This is a beautiful Danish queen. She had her pretty green dot on. My partner's quite the photographer, so he got some really good photos. Okay, we're going to talk about some emerging pests. These are bugs we never want to see here in the United States, but we've seen two of them already and one very, very close. Very bad joke, Tropi and the Hornets, the band you don't want to see live. The northern giant hornet, that's this beautiful girl we have in front of us here on the slide. She's from Japan. She's gigantic, kind of like Godzilla. She was introduced in Washington State in 2019. The yellow-legged hornet, we'll meet soon. She came to Georgia in 2023 twice on tour. And then the Tropilaelaps mite had a very close encounter with us here. She got as close as off the coast of New Jersey in October. The northern giant hornet, so we used to call it the Asian giant hornet, but her real name is Vespa mandariana. She's 1.5 to 2 inches long. This is a really big hornet. They don't really want to come after people. They're not tend to be aggressive, but if you disturb their colony, they can be. They are very, very toxic, and they just a few stings can send you to the hospital, unfortunately. These big girls will wipe out a honeybee colony in hours. So once they find a hive, they are persistent, relentless. They nest in the ground or hollow trees. The folks at North Carolina State has a really great interactive guide if you want to kind of watch the introduction of the hornet and then how the scientists, ag commissioners, and beekeepers work together to find her, trace them back to their hives, and get them eradicated from the area, also following more of them to make sure we got all of them back out of Washington State. So those are some of the links I'm going to make sure you have after the talk, but really fun guide there. If you see her, report her to your agricultural commissioner and your honeybee resources at the state level. While they were in Washington 7 years ago now, they could always come back. And so citizen science is one of the best approaches we have. If you see something, say something with these invasive species. Speaking of the yellow-legged hornet, this was actually discovered by a backyard beekeeper or hobbyist. They said, this is a funny-looking bee. They were an amateur entomologist beekeeper, and they noted something wasn't quite right. Lewis Bartlett out of Georgia genetically tested the trapped hornets and found that there were 2 separate introductions of these hornets. Folks were bringing them intentionally, we think, maybe, into the United States because their royal jelly is known to maybe make athletes better at doing athletics. So they were bringing these hornets in to try to use it as a performance enhancement type of product. That's the theory. That Lewis Bartlett has a published paper about checking, trapping these hornets, genetically testing them, and finding out that they've come here at least 2 separate occasions. They will form a softball-sized nest on almost like a paper wasp on a tree branch, and they will also take out a honeybee colony in a short amount of time. The Georgia Agriculture Commissioner or Agricultural Center has a great website link with more information about identifying them. If you ever see a hornet that looks funny and you can catch it and kill it, I encourage you to put it in a jar with some alcohol and save it. You can always ask Ag Inspection to assist us with identifying a funny looking hornet and seeing if it's something that should not actually be here. But there are a lot of mimics that are, or lookalikes, I should say, that are very similar in appearance and are supposed to live here. And so there's a few different species that are really close lookalikes to the yellow-leg hornet, and those are all available to see with identification notes on the Georgia website. As of last fall, This yellow-legged hornet has become endemic, meaning it's established itself and there's no going back, to several areas in Southern Europe, even pushing up in towards Italy and France. So those beekeepers are really on high alert for this new threat that's been pushing up through, of course, they're connected by land there, but with maybe some shifts in local climate conditions, the hornets have found new ground of purchase. So they're there to stay. So let's hope we keep them out of the United States. The last one, the worst one, is Tropilaelaps mite. These guys are very, very tiny. They're smaller than a Varroa mite. That's her up close on the top, and then that's the size they are on honeybee larvae on the bottom. They skitter across the comb. They, where Varroa mites kind of like hang on like a tick or move around a little or want to be down in the cells. These Tropilaelaps have a very characteristic creepy, super creepy stop-start, like a weird spider across to the comb. They also can transmit viruses that harm the developing brood, suck the poor little life out of our brood, and they can quickly overwhelm a colony. They require brood to reproduce. And so in areas where we have cat brood all year round, these could take over a colony very, very swiftly, and it'd be difficult for a beekeeper to know that had happened if Tropilaelaps was nearby. These mites jumped from Apis cerana to Apis mellifera, where we had Apis mellifera, who makes a much bigger honey crop, housed together with Apis cerana in the south, the southern Asian regions down there. Also in Thailand, they do a lot of studies about this. Apis cerana has a broodless period in the winter and is adapted, lived a very long time dealing with Tropilaelaps mite, whereas the Apis mellifera don't really know how to handle these things. And so they can be devastatingly overwhelming. For beekeepers in that area, they have to rely on formic acid. It's the only thing that's going to kill these guys. It penetrates through the cappings, but formic's a fairly strong treatment. If we think of all of our options for treating Varroa mite, they have to use formic acid. It's the only thing we really know works really well. It's what they use frequently there. So Tropi Stop is a resource from pollinator.org. We want to keep Tropilaelaps mite out of the United States forever, as long as possible. And so it's another, if you see something, say something, ask for help. If you notice an odd insect in your hive, let's get it checked out. And we can see here some of the lookalikes for Tropilaelaps mite. And we can see the difference in how they appear from Varroa. Varroa is this wide, flat. I compare them to ticks in dogs and cats. Whereas Tropi is this little oval guy, but we can have a pollen mite or a Browla, other types of perfectly fine insects to be in your hive that look very, very similar. There's a QR code here. There's resources to get these very up-close photos, and they talk more in depth about how Tropi looks. They hold their forelegs forward, almost like antennas when they're walking around. And then there's a lot of news on the news these days, but this is the posting from the state of New Jersey. It's a celebration of the cooperation with agriculture in New Jersey, and what a great job they did catching a hive of Apis dorsata that was on a container ship off the port of New Jersey. It's a very sick hive of Apis dorsata, but they were harboring Tropilaelaps mite. This came to me through a veterinary friend. It is posted on Facebook. If you Google it, you can find the posting of them telling each other good job with this. But I'm so thankful that we caught this off the coast of New Jersey. Because if Tropilaelaps mite came into the United States, we would need to do quite a cooperative, concentrated effort to get it back out of here, like we did with the hornets. And that involves cooperation between beekeepers, ag inspectors, veterinarians, and the government at large to be able to keep these pests away. We have some very cute tropi imposters here. These are excellent microscopy photos. Mark Carlson, who I think is in the audience, took these photos and was so gracious to let me share them with you. So you can see how this pollen mite could really make you think that it was a Tropilaelaps mite. And so it's worth, if you see something, to, again, collect it or try to get a photo, try to get a sample. I think it's well worth the information gathering and your time for it to be what we call false positive. It is not really a Tropilaelaps mite. I would rather see more of those and not miss the real one if it's ever here, than to say, oh, don't worry about it, they seem okay, and we missed something when we could have stopped it early. So these are some really great photos he was able to take, and I'm very thankful to have them here for this talk. I'm going to take a little mead break. It's a lot of pests, a lot of gross stuff I just talked about. Thank you for being here through that. We're not done. We're going to talk about some of Varroa mite management next. Okay, so we all know about Varroa. She's been here since the 1980s. It's a pest of honeybees. It feeds on developing larvae, but can also feed on adult bees. She transmits viruses to the bees, and there's a lot of different strategies to be able to combat them. One strategy that I'm going to be very upfront, do nothing is not okay. If you want to get hygienic bees, if you want to do all natural beekeeping, you do queen caging and drone comb removal and hygienic bees. I love that. But these are everywhere now in North America, and we know what a devastating parasite they can be for our honeybees. And so everybody that has honeybees needs to have some type of a strategy for monitoring their hives to know how many Varroa is in there. There's always, unfortunately, going to be some these days, how they're affecting your bees, and when you need to use something more or different for your strategy to keep these at a minimal level and keep your bees healthy. California has just now approved long extended release oxalic acid. I know some beekeepers have been making their own sponges or treatments for some time. It was technically not approved. Lots of folks were using it, and it seemed to work really, really well. But thankfully, it's now approved. And if you don't feel like making your own acid-soaked sponges in a respirator, I tried it once. I'm never going to do it again. You can go and buy these cardboard strips, and it's much safer. It's safer for you. It's going to be safer for the hive because we have a calculated dosage. It's easier. There's not going to be as much spillage or other problems. So, I like it. While I don't tend to use the sponges, I think I'm probably going to use VarroxSan in the hives that I work with. Oxalic acid is a contact miticide. It means the mite has to come in contact with it as the bees are moving throughout the hive for it to irritate them and get them to fall off and die. So if the bees aren't moving around a lot, they're not coming into contact, actual like running over the strips of cardboard, or if you use sponges, those wherever you place them, it's not going to be as effective. We also have to have it the right time of year, over 60 degrees Fahrenheit-ish, so that the bees are wanting to move around and not contracted into cluster in the center. The great thing about this is there's no real temperature restrictions. It's just that it works better when it's over 60 degrees. But if it gets really, really warm, we don't tend to see problems with it like we do with formic. And it's okay to use with honey supers on your hive. We don't have a lot of treatments that are. Well, at least Thymol, Hopguard, it's going to make your honey taste weird. But with this, you want to separate the box that you're treating with the strips by one empty, box or super that you're not going to be collecting honey from, and then your honey super that you want to harvest for human consumption. And it's just because we want to keep sponge pieces, cardboard pieces, or oxalic acid away a little bit from what you're going to consume. When I think about the effective treatments, how the treatments can affect honey, I eat the honey from our hives every single day. So does my family. And so anytime I think about following label instructions that may seem too serious, or whether something's going to be getting into the honey, this is what I'm consuming. And so I want to be as safe as possible. So the nice thing about VarroxSan is it has flexible dosing. It's you have to do some bee math, and you have to be able to or familiar with counting frames of brood or frames of bees in your hive, knowing how big that colony is within the box space that you've provided for her. So the math is 4 strips per 10 deep brood frames. So if you have 5 deep brood frames and then some space on the side, smaller colony, you can use 2. This makes it really nice for small colonies. It makes it really nice for nucleus hives. If you use medium boxes, like I do, you're going to count 2 medium super sizes as 1 deep. So then you have to do a little bit of extra math there, especially if you're using 8s in mediums to find out how many brood frames you have in there full of bees and how many strips you should be using. But the really nice thing too is that if you have a small colony and you're like, I know I expect that they're going to grow, put in 1 or 2 strips, wait 2 weeks, and you can always put in more. And if you put it in the fall and your colony's shrinking or something else is going on, they're smaller than you think, you can always move those strips or remove one. So it is adjustable as time goes on. That's really nice to make sure we're not overdoing it. In the studies that they've done, the control for this product was about 96% effective. That's really, really good. But nothing's going to be 100%. I know a beekeeper here in San Francisco that's been using oxalic acid. He's very successful. He gets 8 to 12 colonies through the winter every year. He puts oxalic acid in his hives almost every month. One thing I don't love about using it all year round is that if we leave a product in there 100% of the time, we're really building the conditions for the mites to eventually become resistant to it. Somebody's going to survive, and that's the strongest mite that resisted the oxalic acid, and then have more mites that are a little bit more resistant. So I do really, really like this treatment. I think we're going to use it with the hives that I work with. But always consider rotating your products and or doing mite counts. I don't do enough of those. That's a great way to know, is the treatment that I just did effective, or do I need to use something in addition? Varroa mite is such a big topic. So I wanted to give everybody lots of resources on Varroa mite strategies. Better Bee has a video on exactly how to apply VarroxSan. It's great. It tells you how to do the bee math, how to count how many strips you need, how long to leave it in there, also wearing gloves when you apply it, how to make sure it's separate from the honey super you want for human consumption. If you're more of an audio learner, Beekeeping Today podcast also has some extra information about this. And if you go to the Better Bee website, I learned a lot from them. Their Education Hub tab has lots of information about strategies for Varroa control. It'll go through, do you have 2 hives? Do you have 20 hives? What's the climate like in your area? Are you needing to adhere with organic standards, or do you not mind using things like Amatraz to help you figure out the best strategy for your beehives? This is a picture of the strips here. They're cardboard. If you've got a smaller hive, a mediums or a nuke, you can actually extend them over 2 or 3 frames to get them to fit down in there. But one of the nice things about them being long cardboard strips is, remember, this is a contact miticide. The mites have to come in touch with it. That happens when we do an oxalic acid vapor. So if you've ever done or seen that, you cover the whole hive and you vaporize oxalic acid the whole way through it. Every mite comes in contact with that oxalic acid. That can be tough on the beekeeper. You need to do a respirator. You need to wear PPE for that treatment. You can do an oxalic acid dribble where you drip it down between the bars. I tried that 1 year. I hate doing that. Some people are very, very good at it. I feel bad getting the bees wet and sticky and annoyed, and they didn't like it either. But this is really nice because it's already in the cardboard strip. For folks using sponges, you put those on the top or sometimes in the middle. The bees have to be active enough to be coming up into contact with that. So that's where I do think there is an advantage to these strips, because it's going down along the sides of the frame. You're going to get a lot more bee contact with it, a lot more mite contact, and that's how oxalic acid works to kill the mites. Always remember to do a mite count at the conclusion of the treatment window. Bees also love to chew up these cardboard strips and spit them out of your hive. I saw a ingenious beekeeper try to put the strips up through and staple them on to the bottom of the frame to get them to chew it less. It's okay if they chew it. It's fine. It means they're coming into contact with the active product more. Let them chew it out of there if they want to. It's fine. But that's, separating your honey super again keeps the cardboard fluff from ending up in there. Some tips for it. And if you're using it in the fall and your beehives are getting smaller, you may need to reposition those hives closer. If the brood contracts, if you're using it on nukes in the spring, growing colonies, you may need to add additional strips for the treatment duration if they outgrow what you applied to them. So apply one strip, inspect again in 2 to 3 weeks, and add additional as you need. Feeding bees is encouraged when using this product just because it encourages their movement. So if you have a top feeder or frame feeder, you can use that with this product to get them to move around a little bit more. I don't recommend front entrance feeders ever, except for water, and that's because it's open buffet sign for ants and hornets to come by, and other bees as well. We don't want them coming over for the buffet. Always wear gloves when you're using this. It's wood bleach. You don't want that on your hands. And you want to store it somewhere cool, like the garage. Keep it out of your car, out of less than 86 degrees and out of sunlight. Varroa, a very different mite treatment than we've had on the market before. And so this product is from a company called Greenlight Biosciences. I got to have a lovely chat with Adam, one of the beekeepers that works with them. He's a beekeeper in South Dakota, and he's used this product for a few years. He's helping them talk to beekeepers about how to best use it, when it's a good candidate for your hives, when it's not, and the precautions around it. Really nice fellow to talk to. So Varroa was just approved in September. You could only buy it through Man Lake. I'm the only supplier for it right now. What this is called a RNA, interference RNA. RNA is kind of the intermediate protein that talks between DNA, the structure of who you are or what something is, and the proteins that it makes. So this RNAi is an intermediary signal that mimics something in the Foundress Varroa mite, but gives them the wrong information. And it essentially makes the Foundress mite, when she comes in contact with the product, unable to reproduce, which is great. We want less mites. There's some tips and tricks about how to use this best, because the way it works is that the Foundress Varroa mite in the cell, where she's getting ready to have more mites, needs to come in contact with the product for it to be effective. And it's not a miticide. It's not going to kill them. So if you have a lot of mites already, too many mites already, it's not going to reduce those numbers. They're still going to feed on your bees and give them viruses. They're just not going to make any more mites if they've come in contact with the product. So this is really something to be used in conjunction, in addition to other strategies. That's how I see this new product right now. It may be able to be a game changer for some migratory beekeepers or folks that have a lot of hives, because you can kind of put it in and it works for 18 weeks. It works to keep the mites from reproducing. But if you're getting a lot of drift and new mites introduced, or your hive has another pressure or challenge, or your winter bees are already suffering from things like deformed wing virus because the mite loads were higher in the summer, this product's not going to save a hive from that condition. And so we got to use it with other strategies. It's fed to the bees in a sugar syrup packet. You need 2 packets per hive. So you put in 1 pouch. It's got a little thing you can open on it, and it has this little feeding membrane the bees can come to. So it's tasty sugar syrup in the packet that has the RNAi in it. It's 1 pouch per deep brood box. So if you have an exceptionally large hive, 2 brood boxes full of brood, you probably need 2 pouches per application. And then you need to repeat that in 1 to 3 weeks. So they need to eat all the food, store it in the brood food. That's kind of the tricky part about this, is if you have a big honey flow on, they're not going to take up the syrup. They don't want it. If you're feeding them something else, they're not going to want it. But if there's not enough food around, the adult bees are going to consume the sugar and not store it in the brood food, because as the brood food gets fed to the larva in the cells, that's where the mites are coming into contact with it, and that's where it's doing its job. So timing of when to apply this is really important. The nice thing about it is you can put it on the top. You'll need a little spacer board to get it to fit, just like you would with like an Apogard tray or any other treatment right on the top. Or you can put it on the bottom board underneath, and the company says it works just fine. They've seen bees take it up very well from there as well. Always wash your hands and change your clothing after use. This company, Greenlight Biosciences, also makes some products for other pests in agriculture. And if there's a spill of this, what they know from their other products is it doesn't stay around in the environment. But if this spilled in my beard, I would want to clean it up really quickly. And I always wear gloves. I wear nitrile gloves for everything that I do in the beehive. And so I would encourage folks to wear gloves when they're using this product. It's just new on the market. We don't think it has any human health hazards. It doesn't do anything harmful to the bees, but I don't want it on me or in me. So I would wear gloves. We're going to have plenty of time. I'm going to go back to neuro for one quick moment. We have plenty of time towards the end to do questions. So we might have some questions about this. But the representatives of some company are really, really nice, and Man Lake has some more information about how to best apply this. I forgot to tell you all that they recommended to me it is best to be used in the springtime when the bees are really building up and storing a lot of food for brood. Brood is expanding. Or in the fall, but early in the fall. And so this isn't something I would use super late in the season if there's not enough brood in there. Again, if there's mites are too high and there's not enough brood, it's not going to kill any of the mites. So it's not going to be as effective, but it is safe to be used with other things. So you could use oxalic acid and Varroa together if you want to, but as part of a whole plan. Bees in agriculture. I'm a bumblebee enthusiast. I think they're wonderful. This was from a strawberry farm that we got to visit with Apimondia. The beekeeper's friend was a really cool guy. His bees, he had to climb a ladder to get to them. He had about 20 colonies in a gigantic strawberry greenhouse, and his bees are up high. And then every 2 to 3 rows on the ground, we had a bumblebee hive. It's not a lot of nectar, no nectar from strawberries, but the pollen, the honeybees will go around and pollinate, but bumblebees are actually much better pollinators. So they have them together in the same greenhouse working for our food. And then right outside of this beautiful greenhouse on the mint plant was this free wild native bumblebee that I got to meet. Um, and so anytime I think about honeybee health, I'm talking to y'all about, American Foulbrood, invasive species for honeybees. We're talking about Varroa mite and their viruses. Um, we know that there are illnesses that honeybees can transmit to our native bees, especially because there's conditions where we're housing honeybees and native bees together for our food. This is how Tropilaelaps moved from one type of honeybee to another. We were housing them together. So these conditions are necessary for us to run our agricultural systems, but we as beekeepers, I feel, have a responsibility to be mindful that the health of our honeybees impacts our neighbors' honeybees, our agricultural system, but then also the native bees who are here long before us, hopefully will be here long after us, and that are a really important contributor to agriculture as well. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to come out of presenter mode. I wanted to make sure I save time for questions. So it's my first time giving this talk, and so any questions or feedback that you have for me can really help me just improve this going forward. Thank you so much for everybody for having me tonight. Oh, Hank, I think you're muted.
Okay.
Yes.
Lindsay, I have one question for you.
Yes.
Several years ago, I had American Foulbrood, and a veterinarian in Ferndale gave me terramycin to treat all my remaining hives. Do you still recommend using terramycin? Somebody says that's really not effective, but I've been told that it is effective at preventing the spread to your neighbor colonies.
So oxytetracycline or terramycin is what we still recommend for preventing the spread of American Foulbrood. So if you have a sick colony, she needs to be euthanized, but any other colonies in the yard, you can absolutely, in the United States, treat with terramycin. That is what I would still reach for. And also always send a sample to USDA Beltsville and ask for microbial resistance testing. When we've sent samples here from San Francisco to Beltsville, what that microbial resistance testing will tell you is the oxytetracycline you started with going to work, or do you have a resistant strain of American Foulbrood? At least here, so far, oxytetracycline still seems to be working, but in Texas and some other places, over half of their American Foulbrood cases are now resistant to oxytetracycline. We can also use something called lincomycin or tylosin. While those are legally able to be used, I still reach for oxytetracycline unless the testing shows me that's not going to work. But also doing some of these other strategies that we've now learned to reduce risk and to reduce presence in the community. So pulling out brood comb, thinking about vaccinated queens, cleaning equipment and not moving equipment that's potentially contagious between yards.
Yeah, Lindsay, that brings up, I happened to have a case several years ago, and David Giuliani, actually, we had the Eureka Fire Department burn the hive. A friend of mine euthanized the hive. I was gone. I was on vacation, and he euthanized the hive, and then David Giuliani, actually, we got the Eureka Fire Department to burn the whole hive. And I treated everything with terramycin, and I got rid of a lot of equipment. And you can control it in the apiary, but you got to get right on top. So I would make a recommendation. I know you want to get it tested, but the toothpick test is pretty much 90%. When you can pull a larvae or the gook out and it sticks an inch, what do you call it? It's like chewing gum. It comes out in a string about an inch long. Pretty sure that's what you have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't wait.
Go ahead.
Yeah, And to your point of if you have clinical signs, if you do that matchstick test and you know it's a positive, I don't wait on Beltsville results to take action.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sorry you had that experience. It's always hard when that happens.
Yeah, and I was just starting off too, so I got very discouraged. But Janine and other people helped me get through it, and it is treatable. And other people have had it. It's not the stigma attached to it, and most likely, I think it came from an old, from a diseased, what do you call, feral hive.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you, Lindsay.
You're welcome. I've not been monitoring the chat for questions. And so if you do have a question, I'd ask you to bring it up now verbally, or if you want to put it back in the chat for me, I can try to answer it now for folks.
That's a question on freezing will not kill the American Foulbrood. No, it will not.
Nope. It'll preserve it. In the lab, when we are training on how to do diagnostic tests on it, you can freeze a frame of American Foulbrood and pull it out 3 and 5 years later and still teach people how to get good test results from it. So burning the comb is really the only way to get rid of it. Yeah.
So Varroa doesn't make the mite counts any better, but keeps them from getting worse.
If you gave it, you'll see mite counts go down over time, but it's, 18 weeks of watching it slowly go down. So if your mite levels are 3% or higher, you need to be thinking of doing something in addition or before or with to really feel confident it's going to do what you want it to.
You were saying,
Go ahead, Cheryl.
okay, you were saying that you use the two treatments in conjunction with each other. Can you use them at the same time, or do they need to be more than a month apart, or how does that work?
So for Varroa, it's 2 applications of Varroa. So you apply it, make sure the bees consume all the syrup, apply again within 1 to 3 weeks. Additional products used at the same time, let's say Formic Pro or the oxalic acid strips or something else, the company says should be fine and safe to use together. But I don't know that I would they say it's okay to use, but it's such a new treatment that I would probably start out cautiously. I would say, what are my mite levels? Do I need to use a knockdown treatment to get them under a reasonable amount? And then would Varroa keep them very low for the rest of the season?
All the more reason to do more mite counts. I don't do enough either.
So, Lindsay, can that be used as a maintenance? In other words, can you use it throughout the summer to keep your mite population low, or do you not recommend that?
Yeah, so it's going to work best applied in early spring when you're doing splits and the brood is really building. It's going to be a little harder for it to be super effective mid-summer, but it's supposed to provide control over 18 weeks. So that's quite a long time, right? That's 3-4 months of time. So if you apply it in, let's say, April, May, June, July, that's when I would be thinking of doing a mite count or doing something different. I wouldn't trust it to last the whole way to the fall to keep the hive super healthy. I would be delighted if it did, and my mite counts were super low and I didn't need to take more action. But I always advocate for something in the spring around Earth Day, 420, checking and getting a strategy, something around the 4th of July, and then seeing what the bees need at the 4th of July. I do a lot of formic around that time if they need it. And then again in the fall, having a strategy or a plan. You may not need to do a treatment on every colony every single time, but your strategy for Varroa should change through the season for what the bees need.
Good information.
And I was also thinking that with the formic acid, I think I would be reluctant to give both at the same time, at least for the first 4 or 5 days, because that formic acid treatment is so disruptive. I think that would be hard for them to.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the Naroa folks say you should be able to use it with other treatments, but the other treatment is also important. Could you put it in with the extended release oxalic acid treatment that is recommended to be given while feeding and they're moving around and building brood? Maybe. To your point,
Wow.
Janine, with formic, I agree. It says on the label, don't put it in here with anything else. I wouldn't recommend putting it in there with anything else if the other treatment says don't do it. Yeah.
So you think it might be possible to use Naroa and the VarroxSan at the same time?
According to the Naroa people, but again, we would want to read the VarroxSan label. And if they're saying don't apply it at the same time as anything else, then I would hesitate to do that. And that's where this Varroa management can get a little bit tricky. Naroa is so new on the market.
Mhm.
I'm very hopeful it's going to be a good option, but I haven't used it yet. And so we don't have a lot of, at least beekeeper real life experience. We have their studies for it. They used it in the studies with some other treatments, and it seemed to be fine for the commercial beekeepers, but it is very new. And so please take these statements of whether you can use it with other things and whether that's safe with a grain of salt, and some do research on your own part to see if it fits with your strategy. The more things we put in at the same time, also agreeing to your point, Janine, the more things we're doing at the same time, the more disturbance in the hive. You know, sometimes I've had the bees just decide they were over whatever I did and they left. And I thought I was doing all the right things. I was like, you want all this hop guard and you want all this stuff. I'm helping you. And they're like, no, lady, I'm out of here. So we do have to be cautious if we're doing too much in there, that they can make their own decisions sometimes too.
Did you have a chance to listen to Frank Lovio and his experience with the Naroa?
Yeah, I did hear some bits of that, some beekeepers talking about I heard one folk applied it and had a pretty okay experience, and somebody else lost a few hives from it. Um yeah, you know, it, without being able to see the hive myself, or whether that beekeeper did a really thorough inspection after and took some samples, it's difficult to say what might have happened. Sometimes we just lose a hive towards the end of the year, and there's nothing we could have done about it. I also know beekeepers that struggle a lot with hornets and other robbing that can happen. I'm not sure I can say. I guess what questions do folks have about that I can try to answer? Yeah.
Frank is probably still here. He said they absconded. He didn't find dead bees. It looks like they were absconded. So I would question, why would they abscond? It's nothing that would repel them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Usually when they abscond, they know there's something wrong. They got to get out of there. And I don't
Yeah.
think that treatment would trigger that kind of a response. But I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah. Um,
my our Frank is still here. You probably, but absconding, I could see if there were a lot of dead bees around or something. But
yeah.
absconding is a sign that something else happened.
Either losing the queen, and it's all is timing things, right? So not seeing the hive myself, whether something happened to the queen and they collapsed, or I had a hive one time that, despite my best efforts, she became overwhelmed with Varroa. So if you do see bees, adult bees coming out of the frame, like they're trying to emerge and didn't make it, that can be a sign that the Varroa overwhelmed them despite your best efforts. And that is one tricky thing with this Noroa, is that it's not going to kill any mites. And so if the mite levels were high, because the mites are developing under the cappings, it's tricky. They can go from looking like your mite levels are really low to high very quickly. Perhaps she got overwhelmed despite beekeepers' best efforts. Yeah.
Lindsay, there's a question by one of our beekeepers. It says, don't the bees use Varroa in the honey stores?
They could, and we don't want them to, which is why we want to apply it under the conditions where we expect them to be storing it into the brood food. If there's too much food coming in, nectar flow at that time, it might dilute it and end up in the honey store. I feel like the way I would use this is during the time of applying it, not have a honey super on it. Really apply it when you've got your brood chambers there, but not the honey super that you're going to then be harvesting for your own consumption or for sale. Because you're going to be done with treatment within 2 to 3 weeks at most. I don't want the interference RNA in honey that I'm going to eat, and the company doesn't recommend you do that either. So they shouldn't want to store it, but given the opportunity, they could. Don't put a honey super on while you're applying it. Put it on as soon as it's done.
Good advice.
What other questions do folks have?
I have a question. My name is Larry Whelan, and I got in late on your talk. Somebody knocked on the door about the time you were going to start your talk. But anyway, did you talk at all about the genetic Varroa-resistant queens, and if there's any merit to that? We keep paying more for the queens because they're supposed to be a Varroa resistant, and I'm just I'm not sure if there's any truth to that, or I know apparently in some countries they don't have the Varroa mite problem that we have. And do you have any information on that or insight?
Yeah, so what we know, I didn't cover it, so you didn't miss anything. I did say that using hygienic queens, which I think we're talking about the same thing, are a part of a strategy for Varroa mites. So, when Apis mellifera, the honeybee we all know and love, first encountered Varroa mite, they didn't know what to do about it. But some really smart bee breeders have bred a behavior, a tendency to do a certain thing. And I think of this like dogs that are pointer dogs, right? Like you got a German short hair pointer, they see a bird, they're gonna point right away. It's part of their being. So for the bees, the behavior we're breeding in is to be extra hygienic, to smell sick brood and to bite the legs off the mites. There's a one breed called the Indiana ankle biter. She's my favorite. And she'll go around and bite the legs off the Varroa on her sisters. And so thereby killing them. We know that the genetics of the Africanized bees makes them also a little bit more resistant to Varroa, but we don't really like the other parts of their behavior being super defensive against us. So there is a balance there, because I don't want bees that are really mad to see me every time. I like my sweet bees, but I also want them to be mean against Varroa. So if I had the chance to try some Indiana ankle biter bees, I probably would. But it's not going to mean that you're forgiven for never doing mite counts and that you're off the hook for doing Varroa treatments, because it's part of a strategy. So they still will have Varroa. They still will need your help with Varroa, even if they're really good at keeping themselves healthier.
Do they have comparative data using these hygienic queens?
They do. I don't have it in front of me, and maybe I will think of putting this all together for a talk for next year, because we could spend hours talking about Varroa. So let me put that, thank you. I will put that on my notes as something to that folks want to hear about in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Lindsay, I have a
And
question about, have you had experience with vaccinated queens for American Foulbrood?
Yeah.
Are you going to try it out?
Yeah, I want to try it out next year. I'm going to get a couple vaccinated queens and I want to try them out. Last year I grafted and bred some of my own queens, but next year I think I'm going to get some vaccinated ones. There are some upcoming good studies, they're not out yet, about vaccinated versus unvaccinated queens maybe being more resistant to other viruses as well. We see this in other animal species where we protect them from one thing, and so their being doesn't have to fight that off, and they're healthier overall. So I'm really optimistic that the vaccinated queens could be helpful in areas where folks have struggled with foul brood. Or if I have a beekeeper that says, you know, I never want to go through this again. It's a terrible experience. Trying again with a vaccinated queen. So I will give you an update on my personal experience. There's a lot more breeders that have them available, but it's like probably $40 to $60 more because she's been vaccinated. Now, if you can keep her for a couple seasons, then I think maybe that would pay off and be worth it.
The reason I bring it up, Lindsay, is that some members of our association here have purchased vaccinated. And to be honest, we have mixed results. So we do not know, and I'm curious to see, probably in time we will get more study, but we had mixed results. I wouldn't say, I cannot talk about the details of it because I don't know, but several members have expressed that maybe the queens weren't good themselves or whatever, weren't mated properly, or there was other circumstances, but we have had mixed results with vaccinated queens. And so I'm curious your data come out about it in the future.
Yeah, so I will ask you, did you have any cases of American Foulbrood from the folks that had the vaccinated queens as part of their operation?
No, we haven't had American Foulbrood for 2 years here.
Good. Okay.
So
Janine has a question. Janine, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to give some input. We got early queens last year from Oliveras that were vaccinated. And I think that the, early queens just did not necessarily get mated as well. So I know that, mating is also a part of immunity. So I kind of wonder if we'd gotten later mated queens when the weather was really warm, whether that would have improved the performance of the queens as far as viruses go.
I have some data if you want to hear it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I bought 2 vaccinated Saskatraz queens, and when I did my mite wash this fall, the one Saskatraz had the lowest mite counts of all of them that I tested. The other one didn't survive, even though it was one of my better honey producers. They absconded when I was doing the Formic Pro treatment.
There's a lot of things that go into a hive doing well. I've not tried a Saskatraz yet, but I know some beekeepers that love them. Reflecting on it, the vaccine only gives her protection from American Foulbrood, not from Varroa. It may improve her health versus some viruses, but again, that is not published yet, and it's not going to help her if she's overwhelmed with Varroa, or you have hornets, or any of the other number of things that can happen. And so as there's more bee breeders doing vaccines, what I would love to see is, and I think the quality of the queen has to be good first. She has to be well bred. She has to be a good ruler, have those good genetics. And then the vaccine is another layer of armor for her, but it won't turn a queen that didn't get bred into a good queen. To your point, Janine, I absolutely agree.
But if you went ahead and got the vaccinated uh, or queen, wouldn't you have to inoculate your hive with American Foulbrood to see if it was effective?
Yeah, and we don't want to do that. We're going to leave that to the researchers, and they're doing that for us.
No, but
For
you
in
said
a
you were
yeah.
going to try them. I mean, we turn our queens out about every 2 years, or they don't last any longer than that. So I think just trying it. I mean, the amount of American foulbrood here is very rare. So
Mm.
if we all went ahead and got vaccinated queens, I'm not sure we'd be making much headway.
It depends on the risk in your area. If you are a beekeeper who's had foul brood before, recently, or you have a neighbor that's is struggling with it, it might be worth the peace of mind to you. Again, it's not going to make her a better honey producer, and it's not going to do a lot of the things we want from our queen. But for some folks, I think it could be a really good way to feel confident and comfortable trying beekeeping again for these days, the cost of a cheeseburger and a soda, in addition to your queen fee for the year, if you're requeening anyway.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
but I don't think going out and nuking all your old queens and putting in the
Nope.
vaccinated one would make sense to me.
No, but if you have to euthanize a hive for American Foulbrood in your operation,
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Then
yeah.
when the fear is there, I could buy into it. I mean, vaccinations have been very effective in humans, and I don't know why they wouldn't be with bees as well. So I guess if we got all vaccinated queen bees, we'd no longer have foul brood.
I'd like to see it be easier to use and more accessible to beekeepers, and then that could potentially be a strategy, but that's in the future, and that's for the bee breeders and the researchers to work on. Yeah,
Let's
I'm
make it a
excited to see
law.
what'll happen.
Let's make it a law for the beekeepers. You have to vaccinate.
We're a long way for that. But if you do have a case of foul brood, the last thing I want people doing is ignoring it. At least I know here in San Francisco, we have a couple cases every year, and it's heartbreaking when it happens to you or a friend of yours. And so being proactive, talking to your club, talking to your ag commissioner, not thinking it's a shameful thing, but figuring out how, if it happens, dealing with it quickly, can save your other bees and really save your neighbors a lot of heartbreak too.
Larry, this Hank.
Yeah, yeah. I
We
was
have
going to ask
had,
you how
since I've been a beekeeper here, I've known of 3 cases in our association of the foul brood, the American foul brood. It is around. It's been around in Blue Lake. It is around in feral hives, on old hives that have been in barns, and I would not say it's not. It's around, and I suspect there's some beekeepers that have lost hives. They're not regular members of the association that have had it in their hives and didn't know that's what they had. They just called it a dead out. So I would not say it's around. I know it's around. So we should always be on guard and should not be a stigma. Like I said, some of us had it, and David Giuliani is more than willing to help us get rid of it. And I think all of us beekeepers should be on guard. So
definitely, definitely. But are you getting vaccinated queens at this point?
I did not, but I do consider getting it. I've been clean. I've been clean for several years now. It was a traumatic experience, but I thought there was a stigma attached to it. But as president of the association, I say, if you have it, we will deal with it, and it shouldn't be stigmatized. It's around. There for a while, it was in Blue Lake for several years, so it is around. Would you agree, Janine, that it's around? It's just an
I
adult.
know that there's been quite a few more cases than just 3.
Okay.
And yeah, it's something that people become aware of. We have a case every year or 2 years. we're doing really well since we didn't have one perhaps last year, but yeah, it's endemic here. So we all need to stay aware. And as far as the American Foulbrood vaccinated queens, I am also interested in whether this immunity will also improve the immunity to viruses, which, in my opinion, if you had a colony that wasn't being infected with viruses, it probably would become a better honey producer because the foragers would live longer.
Uh, uh, Lindsay, there's a question from David Giuliano on the chat. It's the last question. Do you have the chat open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So David, thank you for your question. A test a veterinarian could do that is similar to a test vets do for ear infections in dogs that can detect AFB. That's called the hanging drop method microscopy test. I will make sure I send you the link for that. Because anybody that has a compound microscope and wants to order the supplies could do that test. Vets, we usually have a microscope in our office. We're used to putting things on slides and looking at it. And so it helps you look for American Foulbrood. You can see it right away. So Dr. Peter Fowler out of Michigan State, if you Google him, or the Michigan Pollinator Initiative, he has a whole talk on how to do that test. And then if you do know any veterinarians that are interested in learning more in your area, or they want to be more involved with beekeeping, the Honeybee Veterinary Consortium. It's a group of beekeepers, researchers, and vets. We're working to try to get more vets trained and involved. And we have some trainings coming up with how to do this test, how to do other tests like the Holt's milk test. Things that you can do to be really confident of your diagnosis. I don't know how to put something in the chat, so David, maybe I can connect and get your email from Janine in the club later and make sure I send you that resource so you have it.
I have one quick question. What is there diseases that are that we have to report to the ag department or the county Department of Health or any of that like they have in humans?
Yeah, I can jump on that. Yes, AFB is the only one that is necessary, reportable, and necessary action because it is so devastating and spreads so quickly. And any other pest or disease doesn't have to be reported, but really not something to keep to yourself. Getting help with it from other beekeepers, getting the county involved. I mean, we have seen one or two cases of European foulbrood, which is bad, but it's treatable, and doesn't have any mandated action on the part of the county. But yeah, AFB is the one in state law that we have to take action on.
So do you have any numbers on that for Humboldt County?
I think I've maybe about 4 times that I've had to work with beekeepers that had AFB.
How many years?
Oh, 6, 7 years, something like that.
Okay.
So it's not, it's not terribly common that it comes in around here, but part of why it's not so common is because we have a good beekeeping community that doesn't let it just fester. That's when you have problems.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like I said, there should be no stigma attached to it. If you have it, David Giuliano and the association will help. Fellow members will help and deal with it. And you will like I said, I had it. I just started off beekeeping and I was discouraged, but I went through it. I learned a lot. And So if we do have it, we will deal with it. That's my comment. So, anybody have more questions for Lindsay? Well, no more questions for Dr. Lindsay Wilson?
I guess I just want to mention that back when you were talking about RNA and RNAi, I actually understood that. And I don't usually understand that kind of thing.
Thank you. And if anybody has feedback or questions after the talk, I always do this. I go home and I go, oh no, I forgot to ask about. If the club wants to put together a list of things or feedback, things you want to hear more about in the future, I would love to hear that. That might always want to improve these talks, make sure I'm answering questions and getting you the information that you need as beekeepers. So thank you all so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Before closing, I'd like to mention that we do have a position open on the board. We will have a position open on the board. Please consider joining this great group of Cheryl, me, Janine, Dick, and Ron. We're a great team. We work well together, and we would welcome somebody, and Alan. Sorry. And I would hope that some of you would think about joining this great team. Okay. Anybody else got any questions before we close tonight? Everybody's bees doing fine?
No. Janine and I just went through three, let's see.
I'm gonna stop recording now.
Okay.
Six of our seven, our 6 hives, and there's